Everything's coming up to Timberwolves. Yeah, in the zone. Simple dedication to the team when you're in the know. To Timberwolves. Yeah, in the soul. Lifting all the positivity for the Wolves to grow. So, where we going from here, man? We listen week to week to get the clearest to clear. Recaps, got that. Soundcap, got that. Team ads, got that. So tell me what they do not have, huh? How dare you? Foolish question to ask, but I don't mean to go brag. But boy, they got all the stats, and they could go all the way back from KG to Zerbiak. And all I'm saying is that the cast a one-stop shop for my Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Ain't a thing falling, everything's coming up. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Falling from the autumn, ain't nobody gonna stop them. It's the Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Phonies, you can spot them, they the sheep under their clothes. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Talk a lot about them, y'all don't really know. Let's go.
Welcome into another episode of the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, joined as always by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
Doing good. Rolling to the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's a nice new feeling. We don't always get to say that. And Jared Good, we're joining us as always. Jared, how we doing?
Doing good. I have a few concerns more this week than I did the previous weeks, but we'll get into it. I'm usually Mr. Positivity, but I got a little bit of a different twist this week.
Does one of your concerns have the initials PG?
No, but he's in the background.
Oh, okay. No, I'll be honest. I'm concerned about that as well. If you don't know what we're talking about, Paul George came to the forefront or returned last night against the Utah Jazz, and actually a comeback win. He played really well, 34 points, hit 6 threes. So not great timing for Wolves fans. But anyway, so let's talk about it just straight out of the bat. And this is basically what I titled the episode. Chris, can we and will we catch Denver?
I'll let you know in about 3 hours. So Denver's playing Cleveland today, and unfortunately they don't have Mobley, who is, God, I wish he was a Timberwolf. We would be the number 1 seed if we would have got our pick and got Mobley. Dude's a monster. Anyways, if somehow Cleveland pulls that off and we win in Toronto, I think it's definitely a possibility. I think if that doesn't happen, it's a real long shot. Like, we're going to have to almost go undefeated for them to fall to us. I think we're two wins away. So I would say, buckle up for the play-in. We'll see what happens.
Jared, what do you think? Do you think we got the chance, even with Jaden and Malik Beasley out? What do you think?
So, do we have a shot? I mean, I think we still have a shot at 6. I keep going back to how bad the Jazz are playing right now, and last night was just a prime example. They completely blew that game. I've done it all year, so I don't want to be a dick and correct you, Chris, but Dallas is playing Cleveland, Denver's playing Indiana, because they both start with D, and I mix them up all the time. I've done it 100 times. I've done it 100 times this year when I talk about the playoff race.
Well, so, Indiana fights too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, can we catch Denver? I just looked at their remaining schedule about 35 minutes ago, and my gut tells me no. And this is the first time I've said that. Just looking at their schedule, I mean, they're going to play us and lose. I promise you that much right now. But then they have to play the Lakers twice. And, unless AD's back, I just don't see a way how they lose either one of those games. Then they play the Spurs, the Spurs are going to need those games, so maybe. But, I don't know, man. It's just Denver's got kind of an easy route right now.
They do.
And you got the Grizzlies. Hopefully John Morant will be back for that game. I don't know what his injury status looks like, but it gets –
on top of that, they've been playing so well without Ja anyway.
They've done it all year too. Tyus and
Bane, 14-3 without him or something.
I think better than that. I think at one time it was 17-2 at one point.
Yeah. Do I think we can catch them? I mean, there's a shot, but I'll tell you what. If we lose to Toronto tonight, I think that's going to be I think tonight's game is a very important one for the Timberwolves because this is one of those like almost 50-50 games. I think Toronto's favored by like 2 points, so it could really go either way. This is one of those games where, like, if we're serious about jumping up in the standings, it's got to be one that we have to have. Toronto's on a back-to-back. That always helps being the opposition on back-to-backs. I think it's going to be close. Do we catch them? My gut instinct tells me no.
Hey, Gabe, can you throw up the Jazz schedule?
Yeah, I will. Keep talking, and then I'll throw it up.
Because I think the question of catching a team might have switched to the Jazz. I mean, I think they've got the same record right now as Denver, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, we might catch them.
They've been playing horrible basketball lately. I've been saying it for a couple weeks.
It seems like they're broken too. Like it seems like their hearts are broken. Like they know that they're in free fall and they don't know how to stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here I'll throw it up here. Oh, it's still sharing screen. I didn't know that. But yeah, I do worry. Just as a team, I think that Utah is the better team, particularly with a healthy Bogdan Bogdanovic, which they haven't had for a little bit. I do think they're the better team, but yeah, they haven't been playing well. I mean, if you saw last night, did you see who was starting at power forward for the mighty the very own Juancho Hernangomez, and he was playing pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, he was hitting some three.
Warriors, Grizzlies, Suns.
Blazers. Well, yeah.
So Warriors, Grizzlies, Suns. That could be 3 losses right there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Warriors look like dog water right now. They aren't healthy, man. Jazz look bad too. Yeah, they really don't. And I think the biggest problem with the Jazz is, like Gabe mentioned, is Bogdanovic being out, because it really makes them like dig into their bench, and they really don't have a bench outside of Jordan Clarkson. Hassan Whiteside's been injured for a long time too. They were running out guys like Trent Forrest, and just not very, appealing basketball players, in my opinion.
Not NBA quality players.
Yeah.
We might just need to concentrate on the play-in, which, as you mentioned earlier, Gabe, got a little bit more spicy.
Yeah, it is. So if you didn't hear, like I said, Paul George is back. Also, it sounds like AD is coming back on Friday, which you never know about AD. He's injured all the time. But still, I mean, AD coming back, that's still a huge piece for the Lakers. Also, we're not sure about LeBron's health. That ankle, apparently it felt terrible, but you got to imagine that that LeBron will make it through and be the dominant player that he always is. Yeah, Jared, what's up?
Yeah, I for years I've always said Paul George is one of my favorite basketball players in the entire NBA. I love his game. I love how he plays. But the real thing that makes Paul George so good is his steals. I think he had 4 steals last night. Like he's a two-way player, much like Kawhi, but like even just adding a small piece to that team, it just makes them so much more different, because now they have a guy that they can lean on to get a shot. Before it was just like Reggie Jackson chucking, and now it's like, okay, we actually have a star on our team now with some decent bench play.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting it up a little bit right before we went live, me and Gabe, and that's what I was saying. The Clippers have been hanging around all year, basically just kind of like how the Knicks did last year, based off good vets that know how to play, and they just will give you a full game's effort every time. Now they actually have a talented player. Like, they haven't had a talented player all year on that team, and now they've got a guy who, Paul George, is an MVP quality player. The only thing that ever takes him out of the MVP race in my mind is the fact that he's often playing next to another guy who's an MVP quality player, which then, takes some of the usage and points and everything away. But when he's the lead guy, dude, he's a monster. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes, puts up 46 and 6 for the next, however long he needs to. He's that type of athlete. So, Yeah, I mean, I don't want anything. Oh, it's getting to that point where I don't know if I want anything to do with with the Clippers, but we might
Right.
have them.
Here's a question for you that it's kind of hypothetical. What if, let's say, obviously we don't want this to happen. Let's say Denver beats Indiana, or let's just say this. Let's say the Wolves lose to Denver, right?
Yep.
And regardless of what happens tonight with Indiana, would you, as the Wolves, with Anthony Edwards' knees always bothering him, kind of a banged up team, would you start sitting guys for the stretch run if you're just going to be locked in? If you're pretty sure you're going to be locked in at 7?
I would say no.
No? Okay.
Only because we have not played well since the All-Star break in my mind. Or maybe not that far, but pretty close. Like you'll have a guy play well. Like whatever in Boston, Edwards goes for 20 something. D'Lo goes for what, 4? Like
Yeah, D'Lo's got to be better.
we haven't had a game where all 3 of our quote unquote stars have looked good yet together since this last stretch. We're just a mash unit of one guy blowing up, or like those games where our bench scores 80 and we win and everybody's cheering from the rafters, but it's like that's not going to work in the playoffs. You're going to need Cat, D'Lo, and Edwards to drop a 20 every single game for us to have a chance, and it's not happening. So, I mean, I think that's some of the reason why even lately you've seen our starters in when the game's a blowout and we're winning, because these guys need to play better together. They're not playing well. Like our starters are like a negative plus minus over the last handful of months. That's not going to work. So I would say no, don't rest players. If anybody, maybe Cat, and let these guards, let D'Lo and Edwards figure out how to ball together, because that's been a struggle since the beginning. And the only time it was rolling well is when D'Lo was dropping 12 assists a game and just being a spot up shooter. But it's just not looking well. I mean, we're not playing well. Like we said a month ago, I said I don't care what seed we're in. By the end of the year, I want our 3 stars playing well. I want Prince shooting the ball consistently. I want Noel getting to the hole consistently, and I want Beasley shooting well. I don't care what our record is. We need to be playing well. And Prince has been shooting all right, and the rest of that hasn't really been happening.
Jared, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would not rest players just because I think the 6th seed is very valuable in the West right now. Granted, I believe the way it sits right now is you would match up with the 7-game series, with the Warriors, who basically have Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, and you can, if you love Jordan Poole, you can love him. If you don't, he's just another NBA player. I think he's an okay player, but he's not a needle pusher for me. So I think we could beat the Warriors pretty convincingly, in my opinion. I'm not saying like in 4 or 5 games, but I'm saying I think we could beat them in a 7-game series. And the 6th seed is very valuable. Yeah, and I think that the 6th seed is valuable just because I think the Warriors, I mean, they've looked horrible lately without Curry and without who else got hurt? Somebody else just got hurt. Anyways, yeah, he's been on the bench as well. But would I rest players? I think my direct answer is no, just because I think seed is so valuable. But I will say this: I just said my biggest downfall with the Timberwolves right now is the play of D'Angelo Russell, and I'm one of the biggest D'Angelo Russell homers that you'll ever meet in your entire life. But he's going through a stretch right now, kind of like Ant was a couple weeks ago, and Ant still hasn't like broken out of it. Like he had one good game against the Lakers, and he's starting to like kind of fill it up a little bit. But like D'Lo just looks like he's lost confidence. Like he's hitting kind of like a wall in the middle of the season, or towards the end, anyways. And so I'm really curious to see how he comes out of that, because if we win from D'Lo tonight, I think there's 0 chance we win this game. I just think we need somebody to step up and do something. You've had some lull games from Ant. You've had some lull games from D'Lo for the past couple of weeks. And like we said, we haven't been playing very well. This last 2-week stretch has not been good. and then you add Malik Beasley, into the injury report. I haven't looked into what his exact injury is. I'll level with you, I haven't. But yeah, he's been out for I think at least the last 3 games. He's out tonight. That's concerning. We always talk about our bench and how somebody has to step up and hit some shots, whether it be Prince, whether it be Noel, whether it be Beasley. Well, now you're down a guy. So now you're down to Noel and Prince, basically, which you're leaning on one of those guys to get 15 points. We need that kind of production from our bench.
Mm-hmm. Chris, go ahead.
And what we've been seeing a lot, speaking on D'Lo needing to step up, which is something I've actually loved, is defenses have switched on us a little bit, and they're doubling Edwards on the catch on the perimeter. And they're doubling Towns on the catch on the perimeter, because there was a stretch of games after the All-Star break where no center in the NBA was driving more effectively than Towns. It was Towns and Antetokounmpo were right there for the most drives and the most points per drive. So Towns went from a flame throwing shooter to a driver. So now they're trying to pressure him to take that kind of stuff away. And same with Ant, they're pressuring him. And I love that it's happening now, before that being sprung on us in the playoffs, because it's just a wrinkle that he gets to see and develop on. But when that wrinkle happens, you need D'Lo there to be the pressure valve to hit shots, and it hasn't been happening. And
Right.
he can, of course.
Right.
I think a lot of D'Lo has a lot of head game that he plays with himself and he with other people, where he'll, like, a lot of his game is strictly strategy and when to do this, and sometimes he's overthinking. So he's just got to play, man. We've got to get some buckets out of him. We need some impact plays from him specifically.
Mm-hmm. Taking a look at his last, let's see, we'll go his last 5 games. So 16, 18, 6, 15, 4. So I mean, we
need 20. Because it's not like Ant's been scoring 35 those games. Like if Edwards was scoring 35 those games and Towns dropping 25 to 30, okay, that's cool. But a lot of those games, Edwards was scoring 10 or 12. Like you can't have, 2 of our star players combining for 15 points. Like that's not gonna happen.
I know we didn't get on last. One thing that I really wanted to talk about was that Dallas game, the particularly the one that we lost. Mm-hmm. I see Chris talking, but I don't hear him. Anyways, that Dallas game, it just seemed to be like the game that we lost. I believe Dallas shot 27% from the 3-point line, but wide open all night. And it was a big concern for me with how we are going to rotate our defense with a star point guard. Say this is not a good example, but Chris Paul, because we probably won't end up even getting a chance to play them. But you get those guys that can
definitely happen, I think. But anyway, continue.
Well, play inside anyway. But if you get those guys where you're doing high screen and rolls and we are just sinking in so far that we're leaving wide open 3-point shooters, like that Dallas game was probably the worst game I've watched all year. And I thought we were super thankful to even be in that game towards the end. And that had a lot to do with Patrick Beverley, in my opinion, because I really liked his on-ball defending from a positive note in that game. I really liked how he brought the defense to the table, essentially. But every time I watched the possession, it ended in a lob to Powell or a wide open 3. And they missed a lot of them. They should have killed us that game. But no, and then, it's funny because I think it was 3 or 4 days later, we end up beating them at home. And it's I watched that game and I was like, Jesus, I don't want anything to do with Dallas right now.
Yeah, they missed a lot of shots in both those games. Yeah, they outcoached us. They knew what we were doing. They knew how to handle our defensive scheme where Cat, pushes or slides horizontal to keep the point guard up there. And they know where everyone is dropping to. They knew where everyone covered where, and they knew where the holes were, and they just killed it over and over again. And we try to do that drop coverage and they murdered that. We might as well please never do that again. Like, we can't play that way.
The Saunders Wolves did that for so long.
Yeah, well, we for 7 years that's what Katz was doing, and he failed every single year at it. The last episode we had, one thing that I said I was really excited for was to see some of these two big lineups with Nas and Cat, or what we're gonna do with McDaniels out. And one thing that I've noticed that's really cool that we've done, or interesting at least, is we're going like a 3-point guard lineup. We're going with J-Mac, the point guard. We're going with Noel, and we're going with D'Lo out there often. All three of those guys, which are 3 horrible defenders, but 3 ball handlers that, you know, can make some decisions on their own. These 2 of the 3 of them. It's been interesting, you know, and it's been okay effective. It's kind of interesting to see that twist. I mean, I think it's more of a necessity based on personnel, but man, we're thin and we got to get some guys healthy. I just saw recently Nathan Knight, by example, not like he's a huge asset, but he's not playoff eligible because he's a 10-day contract. So we only have 2 centers. We only have Cat and Nas, and the way Cat fouls everybody, that's not cool either. So who knows? Maybe Monroe will be back when he's done playing with the Jazz.
Yeah, possibly. Like I've been saying all year, I've been a fan of Greg Monroe and maybe bringing him in. One thing that I wanted to mention that, and we were talking about Chris Finch a little bit. So I posted in the group. I basically said, "Hey, I'm not freaking out here, but AD and George are coming back. It's a big deal." And I saw some people responding, "Oh, don't worry. Finch will have an idea for that. He'll be able to do that." But I'm like, as much as I love Chris Finch, he has no playoff track record. Like, we don't know what he's going to do in the big situations. Like, maybe it's unfair. Maybe it's unfair, but still, I'm just saying, we don't know what he's going to do. We don't know what kind of adjustments he can make, particularly in a 7-game series or a play-in situation. So I'm just saying, I don't think we should count on, Chris Finch is gonna be able to draw some up. So I don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
At his age, I don't think he can slide horizontal enough to stay ahead of Paul George either. So
exactly.
I don't know if Chris Finch is really going to be able to be the answer. Like early in the year, they talked to Anthony Edwards about that, and he said, "Well, Finchy, you know, he'll draw some shit up, but we have to do it." Like,
right.
It's the coaches can have the greatest plays, but the players have to do it. Like, I don't really care. I mean, there's maybe a margin that they can help you with, but the players have to be out there playing. And when you add a guy that's 6'10" who can handle like a point guard and is an MVP pedigree, that's something that a coach can't just, you know, whisper away.
Agreed. So let's just for the people watching now, let's kind of get into our tonight's matchup a little bit. Wolves Raptors. It's a huge game. Jared, what are you looking for in tonight's game?
I was last game that we played. I actually caught most of it on the radio. I think I was working or something, but I was driving somewhere and I caught the last of it. And you know, Alan Horton brought up. He's one of the best broadcasters on radio in the country, in my opinion. He's unbelievable. But anyways, he brought up how when we do the pick and roll up top with Cat and he catches the ball, when he gets ahead of steam going towards the basket, he's unbelievable. So I'm looking for him to get the pick and roll and not look for the 3, at least early on in the game. Like, establish yourself driving towards the basket, get to the free throw line, make some stuff uncomfortable for them. Because everybody knows that you're 7 feet tall and you can shoot 3-pointers. When they start sagging off, that's maybe when you start letting the 3s fly. So I want to get Cat established early. And you know, let's not kid ourselves. This Raptors team is small. Size. I think Pascal Siakam is their tallest listed starter. I would assume he's around 6'10". Cat should be able to just, you know, get down low and bully him. But Cat plays a different. Yeah. So even shorter. But Cat should be down low and take it to him. He really should. And it's not something that I really talk about because we're an undersized team as well. But I think this matchup in particular, we need to try and get him running with a full head of steam towards the basket early and often. Then when they start sagging off a bit, let the threes fly. We know you can shoot threes. We know you're phenomenal at it. But we need to establish something early and kind of work to our strengths in this game. Another thing that I'll talk about quickly is I'm worried about the three-point line. There's guys like Gary Trent that can shoot. There's guys like Van Fleet that can shoot. Scotty Barnes is not as good of a shooter, but he can fling it a little bit. There's some guys that can fling it on this team as well. So I want to make sure backtracking to that Dallas game. I don't want to see open threes anymore. I would much rather see us overcommit and get a lob to Siakam or he just puts it home. I'm fine with that. I know it's a much easier shot, but long term, we have to fix what's going on at the three-point line.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what are you looking for tonight?
So I'm looking for, remember those Pelicans games and those Grizzlies games when those guys, and even OKC, when they just hustle and they work hard. And teams that work really, really hard always give us trouble because that's our gig. We're the team that's supposed to work harder than you. And when teams are like, oh, no, actually, we work really hard too, that really messes us up. That's what Toronto does. They've got a lot of athletes that work hard, that are scrappy. That's going to give us trouble. And like Jared was saying, they're small, which for us sometimes is a really bad thing because that gets in Cat's mind thinking that he's going to, Shaquille O'Neal some guys and back them down. And that never works. That's always offensive fouls. That's always stupid slinging passes that are picked off. So I hope he does exactly what Jared said and get the ball in the move and use your size as a finishing ability over a smaller guy opposed to a bully ball thing, which just really isn't Cat's strong suit. Other than that, I need all three of our guys to put up 20. They need to. We need to start doing that. If we've got 6 games, something like that.
6,
Four of those, I want to see all three of those guys at least ball out, or all three of those guys together. Yeah. And just let the pieces fall where they may. This isn't going to be an easy game. Or if it is, it's because one team just forgets to shoot. But the effort's going to be there on both sides. And coaching is going to be phenomenal since these guys know each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I did before we end the show. I did want to show you guys this that isn't too encouraging right now. Let's see, where is it? Oh, here we go. I thought I'd take a look and not great. Yeah.
Okay.
I just had both scores pulled up on my phone. Dallas is also winning right now by 5. So it's.
By the way, for podcast listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, Denver's up 34-12 on the Pacers right now. So.
And the first quarter's not over with.
Yeah,
and their best player, and Tyrese Halliburton, has 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 1 foul, 0 steals, 0 blocks. That's not a good recipe.
Is that Malik Beasley out there? Or so yeah. So it doesn't look like tonight we're gonna get any help, unfortunately.
Well, that's fine though. We're at the time of the year again where we just have to be playing well. When the Packers won the Super Bowl, they were the last seed and they snuck in because 5 teams lost the last 2 weeks, which were exactly what they needed. But they were hot getting in, and they ran with that hot ticket, kind of like hockey. They always say a hot goaltender. We just need to be playing well. Screw seeds. If we're playing well, we can beat anybody, almost anybody, legitly. But we're not playing well right now. So that's all I concern about is playing well.
Tonight's a big game for the team morale. Definitely.
It is. I would agree. And that's another thing. You're saying, playing big teams, we can beat anybody. We were this close this year twice with the Suns.
Yeah, we can beat it.
I think the only team we got that's the thing. We haven't really been blown out too much this year. Sans the Celtics game, but
we had guys hurt. Like
Yeah.
whenever we have guys hurt, I don't care. When one of our big threes hurt, I don't even watch because it's pointless. Like I don't care about that team. That team's not the team that I'm cheering for in the playoffs. And if it is, it's not going to be a long cheer session.
Right.
You know,
for
we
sure.
need. If our three guys aren't together, like okay, like what else is on?
Right, for sure. By the way, what else is on tonight is Survivor. If you guys want to tune into that, just letting you know, it's still on TV. Just so you know,
Year
It's still good.
27.
America's a beautiful thing.
It is. So let's leave it there. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Go Wolves. Let's get this done.
Absolutely, Jared. Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. The number one thing that I'm looking for is that 3-point line. Going well for us. I would like to see Finch throw different fences out. Like it's a big concern for me going forward. But let's get this W tonight and move on.
One quick thing before you sign off. McDaniels, I saw, is now resuming basketball activity, and he's going to be reevaluated in like a week. So that's a huge win if he can be healthy. Huge win.
Just in time for the playoffs. That would be huge. Yep. Anyway, this is the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube, and follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And as always, go Wolves.